Good evening. This is AT Daily. It's great to be with you. We've got a very exciting daf, a very exciting page from the Talmud. We're going to be learning it this evening. I know you're going to love it. There's so much meaty stuff in today's daf. Who is with us? James Roth in the house says shalom from Indianapolis. Stephen Giger, shalom from Dover, New Hampshire. Leona Sue Thacker says, hello, lovely friends. Hot and humid here in southern Illinois. I like the weather report. Let me know how it is over there where you are. Christo Cheney says, shalom from Lubbock, Texas. My father has been laid to rest as of this morning. Our hearts go out to you, Christo. It's amazing that you're here learning with us, having buried your father this morning. May his memory always be for a blessing. And may our learning today provide him a greater elevation in the next step of his journey. Yehudit Sobel says, shalom from Florence, South Carolina. Sharon Frant Brooks, shalom from Lebanon, New Jersey. Bill Eldridge, good afternoon from the Graduate Theological Union at Berkeley. Greg Bedallion, shalom from Arizona. Debbie Schweigart, shalom from Barnegat, New Jersey. Melissa Eiteljuren, good evening from Great Neck, New York. Sue Strauss in the house from Chicago. Sonia Cagna, shalom from Maryland. Brandon Christian Sullivan, shalom from Knoxville, Tennessee. Murray Panette, Rio de Janeiro in the house. It's cool but not cold. Remember, in Rio, it's winter. Let's see. Rochelle Rosen, hello from Modesto, California. Sonia says, this nurse listens to you after a hard 12-hour shift. Wow, that is dedication to your learning, and it's a big merit for you in this world and the next. Ed Berg is in the house. John Shore is in Sedona. Ed Berg is in from Galloway, New Jersey. Cynthia Senderowitz, shalom, also from Rio de Janeiro. Wow, two members of our class in Rio. Deborah Hazelwood in the house from Florida. We are holding Daf Kuf Yud Ches. That's page 118. Of Tractate Shabbos, the second volume of the Talmud. And my friends, tonight marks our 180th episode of AT Daily. It's great to be here with you. Let us light up the darkness. All right. Here we go, and really we're going to go. All right, so remember where we are. Let's set the context. We are in chapter 16. This chapter is all about, the subject of the chapter is what happens if a fire breaks out on Shabbos. The primary teaching is such a difficult ruling that, of course, we save life. We desecrate Shabbos to save life. But beyond that, we can't put out the fire because we can't extinguish a fire on Shabbos. We can't carry things. So there's just going to be very few exceptions. And we started with the exceptions. We can save books of scripture. We can save holy books from the fire. And now we're learning that you can save food from the fire, but not all the food in your pantry, just enough food for the meals remaining of this Shabbos when the fire breaks out. Really what's going on here, or let's say not really what's going on here, I think a great takeaway, we'll just start with a takeaway of this whole chapter, is when you think about what you're going to save from a fire, so now you're really defining what is important in your life, right? What are you going to save from a fire? The first thing you save is your life, your family, your children, people. You save people. And of course, we desecrate Shabbos to save people. And beyond that, there's nothing that is that important. I mean, we're all attached to our homes. We're all attached to our precious keepsakes. We're all attached to our photographs. And we live in a time, by the way, we're very fortunate, right? You can have all your photographs digitized and stored in the cloud, so you won't have this problem. But really, the stuff does not matter that much. And if we're going to take some food out of that burning house, assuming we can do so without danger, it's just enough for Shabbos, right? Shabbos seems to be beyond everything. And that we're really going to get into that today because, of course, while the subject is things we can save from a fire, the Talmud has been known to digress. And today we're going to go into a lovely digression into some of the teachings of Rabbi Yosei. And these are spectacular. This is like a primer in elemental and beautiful wisdom. Before we move on to this stuff, I just want to share one quick teaching that I overlooked yesterday. At the end of yesterday's daf, page 117, Rav Chisda said, a person should always rise early on Friday in order to prepare all of the expenditures for Shabbos, as it is written with regard to the collection of the manna, and it shall be on the sixth day, and they will prepare that which they have brought, indicating that the children of Israel would begin preparing the food for Shabbos immediately upon collecting the manna in the morning. And indeed, the halacha, as written here in the Kohen Talmud, is that a person should always rise early to prepare all of the expenditures for Shabbos. One should rise early on Friday morning to prepare what is needed for Shabbos. Even if one has servants, it is preferable that he honor Shabbat by participating in the preparations, right? So fellas, if you find that your wife is doing all the work, getting ready for Shabbos, and I have to say I'm, guilty as charged here. Nina does so much to get the house ready, get the meal ready, get the kids ready, get everything ready for Shabbos. But you got to participate, and it's a huge, it's a kavod, it's an honor for God, it's an honor for Shabbos, and it's a mitzvah. It's a really beautiful thing to do, to participate in any way you can in getting the house ready, getting the home ready for Shabbos, and you want to jump on that Friday morning, early Friday morning. So I wanted to, since I missed that yesterday, I just wanted to get it in there since Friday's tomorrow, and we can really jump on this and take advantage of this teaching. Okay, so we've been discussing saving food from a fire on Shabbos. And the basic teaching is we can save enough food for the meals which remain on Shabbos. So if the fire were to break out before the evening meal on Friday night, after the sun is already set, so that it's Shabbos, so now we can save enough food for 3 meals. The Friday night meal, the Saturday lunch, the Saturday afternoon, right? And that's for as many people as you're expecting to come. If the fire breaks out Saturday morning, so you've already had one of those meals, so now you're going to rescue enough food for the 2 meals of Shabbos if it happens after lunch, just for the 1 remaining meal. So this assumes that one is obligated to have 3 meals on Shabbos, and that's why we're saving enough food for the meals which remain on this Shabbos when the fire broke out. But is that indeed true? Is one obligated to have 3 meals on Shabbos? The sages say 3 meals. One is obligated to have 3 meals on Shabbos. But Rabbi Chisda says 4. Now, they both look to the same source. This was when the children of Israel were wandering in the desert. Rabbi Yochanan said, and both of them derived their opinions from one verse, meaning the sages and Rabbi Chisda. And the verse is Exodus chapter 16, verse 25. And Moses said regarding the manna in the desert, eat it today, for today is Shabbat for your God. Today you will not find it in the field. So this word today is said 3 times. It's said 3 times. So the sages say, okay, that teaches that there's 3 meals that you're going to eat on Shabbos. Why would Rabbi Chisda look at the same verse and come out with the number 4? And for some reason, Rabbi Chisda says that the word today, that the Friday night meal, which kind of brings in Shabbos in terms of the Shabbos dinner, in terms of the celebration of it. I mean, obviously when the sun comes down and you light candles, that's when Shabbos begins. But for some reason, he doesn't count the Friday night meal. And what he's saying is that it's the 3 meals you need to eat on the day. So you're counting from the morning, right? It's like Moses must have said it's Saturday morning, not Friday evening at sunset. And so Rabbi Chidka says, no, what you got to do is you got to have the Friday night dinner and then 3 meals during the day on Saturday. So now we're going to go back and forth and examine a few sources to say, well, is it 3 meals or is it 4 that we need to have over the course of Shabbos? So we look at a related Mishnah, which is kind of interesting. It's who may take from the charity plate and who may receive funds from the charity fund. Who may receive money from the charity fund. So in ancient times, right, they didn't have a welfare system. It was just the community got together to make sure that the poor did not starve. And there were 2 systems for doing that. There was the charity plate. So there was food that was available, let's say in the synagogue or the community center. And there was somebody administering the charity fund. Funds had been collected to give money to people who had fallen on hard times. So in terms of taking food from the charity plate, if a person has enough food to have 2 meals in a day, then he should not take food from the charity plate, right? The normal thing for a person, at least in Talmudic times, is to have 2 meals. A morning meal and an afternoon meal, or a morning meal and an evening meal, or a lunch and a dinner. Not breakfast. It's funny, we were taught when we were kids, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You know who said that? The manufacturers of breakfast cereal. You can actually skip breakfast, no problem. I mean, obviously there's some people who have conditions that they need to eat in the morning. But for most of us, I love breakfast, but the truth is, if you skip breakfast, you'll be fine and you'll probably be a little bit healthier. But anyway, the sages said 2 meals is the normal thing. So if a person has food, on his person or in his house that he's going to be able to eat 2 meals in one day, he shouldn't take from the charity plate. And if he has enough money to buy or enough food in his pantry to provide 14 meals for a week, i.e. 2 meals a day for 7 days, so then he should not take money, should not request money from the community's charity fund. So now the Gemara says, well, if that's the teaching, it doesn't hold like either the sages or Rabbi Chisda, because the sages said you should have 3 meals on Shabbos, so that would be the 14 meals of 2 a day for 7 days, plus 1 extra meal on Shabbos. And Rabbi Chidka said you should have 4 meals on Shabbos, so that's 2 extra beyond the 2 of every day. And so it would have been, per the sages, 15 meals for a week, and per Rabbi Chidka, 16 meals for the week. But in fact, the Mishnah teaches if one has enough money or food around to have 14 meals in 1 week, he should not ask for, he's got his minimum, he's got what he needs. So neither one of them holds like the sages who would have been 15 meals or Rabbi Chidka who would have been 16 meals for the week. So how do we learn it out? And we understand it holds by the sages, because the sages are saying, well, you're having... you're going to have 2 a day, okay? You're going to have 2 a day, but what you're going to do is the meal that you would have had Saturday night after Shabbos ends, bring it into Shabbos. Eat it a little bit earlier, that particular meal, and so you're gonna shift one of those meals back. The Gemara answers, well, you could shift one of the meals on Friday forward, but that doesn't work. Then he's not going to eat at all during the day on Friday. He has to wait until dinner time, and he's starving the whole day. And so the bottom line is, per this proof and per the sages and contravening the opinion of Rabbi Chidka, we should have 3 meals on Shabbos. And a person should go out of their way to make sure they have 3 meals on Shabbos. This sounds like what is difficult about that? But the truth is, it very often happens that we go to bed very late Friday night. We have a beautiful Shabbos dinner. It goes late into the night. Saturday morning, we shouldn't eat before we pray. we go to the synagogue, in normal times. The praying takes, let's say, all the way through till, noon. And then we have a big, beautiful Shabbos lunch. And then maybe we should learn all afternoon. Maybe some people take a nap. And sometimes if Shabbat ends early, like in the winter, and Shabbat is over by like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, people are thinking, well, I'll just have dinner tonight. But you want to bring that dinner into Shabbos to make sure that both meals happen before Shabbat ends on Saturday. Why? Because a person who goes out of their way and makes sure that they have 3 meals during Shabbos is rewarded for making sure that they have 3 Shabbos meals and say the Shabbos blessings over each of those meals. Let me just get this in front of me. And is rewarded. And we're gonna get to that in 1 second, what the reward is. But before we get there, let's just say that can you wash dishes on Shabbos? The answer is, if you're gonna need those dishes on Shabbos, yes. In other words, if you use all of your plates Friday night for your Shabbos dinner, and you're gonna need those same plates for your Shabbos lunch, so then you can wash them. That's not a forbidden labor because it's allowing you to eat off the nice plates that you use Friday night on Shabbos day. If you use those plates at Shabbos lunch and you're going to have that third meal Shabbos afternoon, you can wash the lunch plates. But after the third meal, you cannot wash those plates because now you would be preparing them for use after Shabbos. And we never do any kind of preparation on Shabbos or any work on Shabbos that is going to benefit us after Shabbos. We only do on Shabbos for Shabbos. Okay. Right. So Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi said in the name of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi that one who eats 3 meals on Shabbos, this is such a big merit and there's such a big reward for this, that one who makes sure, one who is diligent and meticulous about fulfilling the obligation to eat 3 meals during Shabbos, such a person is rescued from 3 punishments. What are the 3 punishments? Number 1, the pangs of Mashiach. It's like, what? I don't want to be rescued from Mashiach. No, not rescued from the age of Mashiach, not rescued from the Messianic Age, but rescued from the travails which will befall the world just prior to the Messianic Age, right? There's going to be, big calamity, wars and disasters and all kinds of terrible things, often known as the birth pangs of the Messianic Age when it comes. But here we're learning that a person who's meticulous about having 3 meals on Shabbos, somehow they're going to be spared. Maybe they'll be spared the worst of it. I mean, if you live in a world that's having so much calamity, everybody's going to suffer in some way, but at least maybe they won't be directly stricken by the pangs of Mashiach. Number 2, such a person is rescued from the judgments of Gehenna. Rescued from the judgments of Gehenna. Gehenna, this is like, it's sort of what's commonly called purgatory. In the culture, it's the Jewish version, our understanding of a place that we go after we die, if we're not prepared for the world to come, is that our souls go to be refined and sort of have the sin burned out of them, and it's temporary. It's not eternal. It's for a limited amount of time. But one who is meticulous about having 3 meals every Shabbos during their life as much as they can, is going to have so much merit stored up that they could be spared the pains of Gehenna after their death. And the third punishment they're spared is the war of Gog and Magog, which is explained. Oh, it's not in this. I had it in the art scroll. But I thought Gog and Magog, I didn't quite understand it. So Gog and Magog, Gog is the king of Magog, or Gog and Magog, right? And so the king of Magog is going to be some kind of a tyrannical leader who, right before the coming of the Messianic Age, is going to lead a terrible war against the Jews in Israel, according to a prophecy alluded to here in the Talmud. It's going to be terrible, but people who are keeping Shabbos now and making sure to have 3 meals, somehow they'll be spared the harshest part of that war. Okay. And having said that, now that we're talking about the reward for fulfilling the obligation to have 3 meals on Shabbos, now we're going to start to digress and get a little bit further afield from our subject, which is what do we save from a fire, right? So we learned that we save enough for 3 meals. We learned why we have to have 3 meals. Now we're learning the reward for having 3 meals on Shabbos, making sure to have 3 meals on Shabbos. And now that we've started this, we're going to get into some teachings that go further and further afield. So Rabbi Yochanan said, in the name of Rabbi Yosei, with regard to anyone who delights in the Shabbat, God gives this person a boundless portion, i.e. a very large reward, as it is stated, and we've seen this quote before, if you keep your feet from violating Shabbat, from pursuing your affairs on my holy day, and you call Shabbat a delight, the Lord's day honored, and you honor it, which remember we learned that means you dress up for Shabbos, and you don't participate in, you don't do work, and you don't talk about work, and you think about holy things, and you focus, right, on what's important in this world, and on the peace of Shabbos, and on God himself, right? Then, and by not going your own way, or attending your own matters, or speaking idle words, then you shall delight in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride on the heights of the world, and to feast on the inheritance of Jacob your father, as the mouth of God has spoken. That's from Isaiah 53, verses 13 and 14. Notice that we're promised that our boundless reward will be attached to the inheritance of Jacob, our father. Now, when we talk about our patriarchs, right, we always say it's about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So we might have thought that receiving the inheritance of Abraham, the grandfather, as it were, would be greater than the inheritance of Jacob. But here we're told that that to receive the reward of Jacob, the inheritance of Jacob, is even greater than the reward of Abraham and Isaac. Why? Because about Abraham it was written, "Rise, walk through the land, through its length and width, because I have given it to you." Right? That's the inheritance that we receive from our father Abraham. And about Isaac, and that was Genesis 13:17. And about Isaac, it says in Genesis 26:3, Isaac, about whom it is written, "Dwell in this land, and I will be with you, and I will bless you, because I will give all of these lands to you and your offspring." Now, these two promises sound wonderful. Like, what more could we ask for? That we were, we've been blessed to receive, the Holy Land as an inheritance for the children of Abraham and Isaac and all the lands there around. But no, it's even bigger than that. Rather, we receive one who is going to honor Shabbos and really keep Shabbos and delight in Shabbos and observe Shabbos in a meticulous and joyful way. We're going to receive the inheritance of Jacob, about whom it is written, "And your offspring will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and all of the families of the land will be blessed through you and your offspring." Isn't that beautiful? The blessings of the Jewish nation will be boundless and will benefit everybody throughout the whole world. What a beautiful promise, and what a beautiful thing to strive for as we keep Shabbos with great joy and putting our oomph into it, right? Observe Shabbos with your all, with your oomph. Okay. And now, hold on a second. We also learned that Rav Yehuda said, in the name of Rav, that anyone who delights in Shabbos, God grants him his heart's desires. As it is stated, "And you shall delight in God, and he will grant you your heart's desires." Now, this one is a little bit interesting because, our heart's desire, we want a lot of things because we want it, that maybe it wouldn't be so good if we wanted it, right? Should we really be given everything that we want, right? I mean, we think about how a parent, educates and rears a child. Do we give the child everything that they want? No, because a child wants things that may be bad for it, and the parent knows better. And our parent in heaven, the creator of heaven and earth, knows better than we do what it is that we really need. So if we keep Shabbos and do a really good job keeping Shabbos, should we be rewarded that we'll get our heart's desire? I would say to you, if we keep Shabbos with great joy and meticulousness, we will learn to want the right things because our priorities will become better focused. We'll understand when you stop, right? When a person just stops what they're doing during the week and what they're lusting for and what they're working for and what they're aspiring for and where their ambitions keep pointing them. And one day in 7, we just stop all that and just focus on our relationship with God and each other. We attain so much better perspective that I believe we're much more likely to want the right things, and those things we will be given if we keep Shabbos properly. And now that we're talking about, well, how does one keep Shabbos properly? With what does one delight in the day of Shabbos? And Rav Yehuda, the son of Rab Shmuel Bar Shelat, said, in the name of Rav. How do we keep Shabbos properly? How do we delight in Shabbos? Look what a beautiful, humble answer this is. With a dish of beets and large fish and heads of garlic. It seems so simple, right? It's not some highfalutin philosophical answer, right? What it means is enjoy Shabbos, enjoy what's in front of you, enjoy what's here. If you're a wealthy person and can make a huge, beautiful, lavish Shabbos table, invite many people and put the best foods and delicacies for everybody, do it. It's beautiful. And if you're a much more modest person and the most you can do is put out a little bit for your family, but it's something you don't eat during the week. It's special. It's different than the rest of the week. That's the key. Each according to his means, but make sure that it is special and that it's a delicacy for you. That's what matters. Now we come to a very famous passage from the Talmud. Very famous. It's in 2 parts. Rav Yehuda said that Rav said, had the Jewish people properly observed the first Shabbat that was commanded them, right when we left Egypt, no nation or tongue would have ever ruled them. Think about all the calamities and oppressions and persecutions the Jewish people have suffered over the last 3,300 years. I mean, so much suffering, so many murders, so many genocides committed against the Jews. And none of that would have happened if we had just kept the first Shabbos properly, as it is stated in Exodus 16:27. And it happened on the 7th day. Some people went out from the nation to collect, and they did not find. Right? The people just didn't get the idea of Shabbos. They said, well, we've been gathering manna every day. We're going to need more. Right? They were told on Friday you get a double portion, on Saturday it's a day of rest. But they wanted more. They wanted to go out and find it. They went out looking for it. And what was the next incident that the Torah records? And Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. We were attacked by the bottom dwellers. Amalek is just terrible. He didn't even come at us with great force. He came at the rear of the column of the Jewish people and attacked the most vulnerable, the old people, the children, the women, the ones who we kept in the back so they wouldn't be up front where the soldiers were ready, to meet whatever came our way. Amalek attacked us from behind. And here's such an important teaching, and this is the basis of the Shabbos Project. If you've ever seen that, the Shabbos Project, beautiful. It started in South Africa, now, yearly doing a beautiful thing where you're trying to get as many Jews as possible around the world to keep Shabbos properly, keep a whole and honest Shabbos, bake challah, turn off all the screens, etc. Rabbi Yochanan said, in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, if only the people would keep 2 Shabbats in accordance with their halachas, right? You have to keep it properly. Turn off everything. Don't kindle fire. Don't extinguish fire. Just follow the laws of Shabbos. If only the Jewish people would keep 2 Shabbats in accordance with their halachas, they would be immediately redeemed. In other words, the Messianic Age would come. And it would come without those pangs of Mashiach that we just discussed on the page before. Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing? If all the Jews in the world would just keep 2 Shabbats, one to make up for the one we missed, the very first one, we didn't all do it, and one to show we can do it now. 2 Shabbats in a row, we would all enter the Messianic Age. Please, God, give us all the strength that one day we can accomplish this. Maybe the first of those Shabbats will be this Shabbos. Okay. And now that we've been, so now that we've been talking about people who eat 3 meals on Shabbos, so we're going to bring a teaching from Rabbi Yosei. Rabbi Yosei was one of the 5 students of Rabbi Akiva in the wake of the disastrous Bar Kokhba rebellion. Right? So Rabbi Akiva was there when the temple fell in the year 69 of the Common Era. An unmitigated disaster. So about 66 years later, he's an old man, but he's still thriving as a teacher of Torah. There is the Bar Kokhba rebellion, where we thought that we could shake off the authority of Rome by a rebellion against Rome, led by this man Bar Kokhba, who was actually supported somewhat by Rabbi Akiva. It was the biggest mistake Rabbi Akiva ever made. It went so bad, and so many Jews were killed by the Roman authorities, and they got so mad at the Torah leadership that they started persecuting all the rabbis right and left, and they were all running for their lives. And Torah scholarship and the oral tradition of Torah among the Jewish people was almost lost at that time, and would have been lost had not Rabbi Akiva, quietly drawn 5 students to him and taught them everything that he knew. And it was those 5 students who then went forward and kept the tradition alive, and eventually their students became so many and the whole Torah world was restored. But it would have been lost but for Rabbi Akiva transmitting the tradition to those 5, and Rabbi Yosei was one of them. Rabbi Yosei said, may my portion be among those who eat 3 meals on Shabbos. Rabbi Yosei said, may my portion be among those who complete the Hallel every day. Now, the Hallel is something that we recite on holidays and once a month at Rosh Chodesh. But what he meant is not the celebratory and special Hallel that we only say on holidays and at the beginning of each month, which is its own kind of holiday. What he meant is the portion in the daily prayers in the morning called Psukei de Zimra, where we say several psalms that include the praise of God. Hallelujah. That was number 2. Another saying of Rabbi Yosei. We're going to have 13 teachings of Rabbi Yosei. Rabbi Yosei said, may my portion be among those who pray the morning and afternoon prayers with the reddening of the sun, i.e. the morning prayer at sunrise and the afternoon prayer adjacent to nightfall. Why should we do that? Because we get right out, right? Like, I don't always do that. I could do a lot better. But praying as early as possible, it's beautiful. It sets the tone for the rest of the day. And if you pray as the sun is setting, it means that you're saying the evening prayer at the earliest possible moment that you can. And that's what he's saying. He's saying rush to do the mitzvah, right? Do the mitzvah as soon as it is possible to do it. There is great merit for people like Abraham. Abraham would always get up early to go do what God had asked him to do. And Rabbi Yosei said, may my portion be among those, this one's crazy. May my portion be among those who die from intestinal disease. Now, why would Rabbi Yosei say that? That sounds horrible. Why would he let those words come out of his mouth? As the master said, most righteous people die of intestinal disease. Now, that is not any kind of a universally accepted teaching. This was just to tell you how great Rabbi Yosei's piety was. He was saying that if it's true that being righteous, is that the reward for true righteousness is something we'll get in the next world, but in this world we suffer, we even suffer physically, then I accept that. Even though some people might say, well, if righteous people have that kind of reward, then why be righteous? Rabbi Yosei is saying, even if I have to deal with that, I'm going to live as righteous of a life as I can. And Rabbi Yosei said, may my portion be among those who die on the path to perform a mitzvah. When I used to study martial arts, and when I was up for my black belt, we had to write an essay about something related to our journey in martial arts, and what the black belt means to us. And I thought, well, I can say what it means to me, but it's just something I've been working toward. I'm not a black belt, so I don't really know what a black belt means. So the way I handled that assignment is I went and interviewed all of the instructors around our school, all the black belts that I could, and asked them what it meant to them. And one of them was a master, a 4th degree black belt, who had joined us in LA from his home in Argentina. He had emigrated from Argentina to LA. And I asked him, what does the black belt mean to you? And he said, when you start your journey in martial arts, you get that white belt and you start learning, the black belt seems like this far off mountain peak. But when you get the black belt, you realize that all you've done is arrive at the foot of the mountain. And now that you're finally at the mountain, you start working your way up the mountain. And if you're very fortunate, death will find you working your way over some boulder on the mountainside. I was always struck by that. It's such a beautiful teaching. And I think Rabbi Yosei is saying the same thing. He hopes that death will find him on his way to perform a mitzvah, that his life will be so filled with mitzvahs, so filled with fulfilling God's will, that when death comes, he'll be in the middle of one of those tasks. And Rabbi Yosei said, may my portion be among those who accept Shabbat in Tiberias, which is in a valley where the day turns to evening earlier, and among those who see Shabbat out in Sippori, which is located on a mountaintop where the sun is visible for longer. In other words, may I arrange my Shabbat. These two towns are near each other so that the walk between them would be permitted, but one is low and one is high, and by making that walk, Shabbat will begin earlier and go out later. Right? One who prolongs Shabbat is rewarded for that. Taking on Shabbat a little earlier, there's a reward for that. Letting Shabbat go later, there's a reward for that. And just, it's bad. Just like we run to synagogue and we don't run away from synagogue because we want to show that our real life is when we're convening, when we're close to our Creator. Likewise, we run towards Shabbos and we don't run away from Shabbos. We don't really want to be in that position of looking at our watch and waiting for Shabbos to end so we can get back to our affairs. We want to just, ease our way back into the week and let Shabbat last a little bit longer because it's dear to us. And may my portion be among those, says Rabbi Yosei, may my portion be among those who seat others in the study hall, i.e. who cause others to come and sit and study, and not among those who cause others to stand in the study hall, i.e. the ones who announce, hey, study session is over, everybody go home. Right? You want to be the guy who's charged with, hey, come learn, come sit, let's be together, let's learn together, and not the one who's saying, okay, let's go, we got to go, it's over. And number 8, Rabbi Yosei said, may my portion be among the collectors of charity and not the distributors of charity. One who collects charity collects fixed amounts, whereas distributors may inadvertently fail to give the poor person enough to cover his needs, right? If you're collecting for charity, then you know that everything that comes in is going to a great cause and every bit of your work is beautiful. But if you're distributing charity, and God forbid you make a mistake, you might cause somebody who needs to not get what they need and that could have been provided. And he doesn't want to be in that situation. And, now listen to this one. And Rabbi Yosei said, may my portion be with one whom others suspect of sin, and there is no basis for suspecting him, rather than to be one who suspects others of sin. Right? He'd rather be in that terrible situation. I mean, imagine how we feel. This just happened yesterday. I was having a conversation via text, with a family member, and I guess I should have been much clearer in the message that I was sending. They misinterpreted what I was saying. They got all mad at me, and it was like I was being misunderstood, and I was so upset that I was suspected of having an improper motive, and I was innocent of that. I didn't have that motive at all, but I was suspected of it. So Rabbi Yosei is saying, better you should be in that position than to be the one who suspects another and is the one making the mistake. Better to be suspected erroneously than to suspect another erroneously. Right? That is a level of righteousness and piety to which we can really aspire. Because it's a horrible position to be in when people think you've done something wrong and in fact you're innocent. But he's saying it's even worse to be the one who is suspecting others of doing wrong. Rabbi Yosei also shares that the thing he's proudest of is that he had 5 sons who became sages. His sons were Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yosei, and Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Yosei, and Rabbi Chalafta, the son of Rabbi Yosei, Rabbi Avtilas, the son of Rabbi Yosei, and Rabbi Menachem, the son of Rabbi Yosei. In other words, he was able to transmit his values to his children, and what a great accomplishment that is. Number 10, Rabbi Yosei said that he always spoke euphemistically. He wasn't vulgar. He wasn't crass. So much so that things that we wouldn't even think of as vulgar, he used more refined language even for that. So when he spoke about his wife, he didn't say my wife this or my wife that. He said my house. Now, to our ear, that's like, what? Is that a compliment? To call his wife his house? What he's saying is, it's like, like in Spanish, we have a saying that we say to a wife, who's our love, we would say mi vida, my life, right? You are my life. You're so dear to me that you're my whole life. And he's saying his house is nothing but, the influence of his wife. And he gives this teaching right after telling us that he's so proud that he was able to transmit Torah values to his sons. In other words, he's giving her credit for everything. And this is where the other sages might not ever talk about their wives. It's like, it's a thing of modesty that you don't talk about women and you don't talk about your wife. And it's just, those are private matters. But he would give her credit for everything. And he would say she's more than just a person. Everything that we are and our whole life is in her merit. Just as when he's speaking about his ox, he wouldn't call it his ox, he would call it his field, right? The field is only producing for his family and feeding them because of the work that the ox does. And likewise, the house is only raising these 5, upstanding sons who become rabbis because of the merit of his wife. Number 11, Rabbi Yosei said, in all my days, due to modesty, I never looked at my private parts. Now, could this possibly be true? Perhaps he's engaging in a little bit of hyperbole, but he's saying that he keeps his mind focused up and not down, right? He's not somebody who's going to be focused on the needs of his body. He's somebody that's going to be focused on the needs of his soul. Number 12 is problematic. This one is really difficult to understand, and I think the secret to understanding it is that it comes as a pair with the final teaching, number 13. So, number 12 is, and Rabbi Yosei said, in all my days, I never violated the words of my friends. I know about myself that I am not a Kohen, a priest, And nevertheless, if my friends say to me, go up to the platform with the priests, I go up. Now, when do the priests go up on the platform? In the days after the temple has been destroyed. They only go up to give the Kohanic blessing to the congregation, right? In Israel, they do it every day. Outside of Israel, we do it on special days, on holidays. When the Kohanim, the people who are of the priestly class, right? You're a Kohen because your father was a Kohen, and only because your father was a Kohen. And so on holidays, the Kohanim go to the front of the room, and at a certain point during the Musaf Amida, during the holiday, during the second prayer of the day, the Kohanim will make the priestly blessing, and they sing it. They're led by the Chazan. They repeat after him. It's a beautiful and haunting tune. And they say to us, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord countenance you and be gracious to you. May the Lord favor you and grant you peace. And the Kohanim are in the front of the room, and they bless all of us. Only a Kohen can participate in blessing the congregation with the priestly blessing. So if Rabbi Yosei's friends are telling him, hey, go up with the Kohanim, I mean, he has an obligation to say, no, I'm not a priest. I can't go up there. What is he talking about? That his friends told him to go up there, and he went, and now he's listing it among his great accomplishments and the wisdom that he wants to transmit to future generations. What is this? If he just said, I never violated the word of my friends, that they told me to do something, and I said I would do it, and then I kept my word to them, or they confided in me and I kept their secrets, okay, we would understand. That would make sense. But that they told him to do something that was illegal for him to do, and he did it because they told him? What? I mean, Rabbi Steinsaltz says about that, many commentaries sought to clarify why people thought Rabbi Yosei was a priest and why he followed his friend's instructions. There are two concerns with regard to this practice. First, by participating in the priestly blessing, Rabbi Yosei was transgressing a positive commandment, as the mitzvah to bless the people was restricted to the priests. Second, doing so could create the mistaken impression that his descendants were priests. If he went up with the Kohanim, and people remember that, and then somehow, one of his descendants went away for a long time, lost touch with the family, came back, didn't even know, whether he was a Kohen or not. And somebody said, well, I remember in my youth that I saw your father or your grandfather go up with the priests. So he must have been a Kohen, and then you must be a Kohen too. And then that child would think he's a Kohen for the rest of his life and tell his son that and tell his son after him that. And that'd be very bad because there would be consequences for that, until the end of time. So why is Rabbi Yosei telling us this? I think to understand it, we should also read his last teaching. Number 13. And Rabbi Yosei said, in all my days, I never said something and then retreated from it. Rabbi Yosei never said something positive or negative about a specific person and then denied it. So, perhaps it only happened once. Perhaps it happened once that his friend, somebody told him to go up. Maybe they were young. I mean, who were Rabbi Yosei's friends? They were sages, right? Maybe they were joking and they were older and he thought they were serious and he went up and did it. And what he's saying here is, I shouldn't have I think he's saying, I shouldn't have done it. I admit that I did it. I take responsibility for it, and I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to downplay it. I want people to know that among the most important pieces of wisdom that I want to transmit to later generations, they should know that I made a mistake, that I did this problematic thing. It could have had big consequences, and I'm not going to deny that it happened, and I'm not going to sweep it under the rug. And in the same way that if I said something about someone, and then they came to me and said, did you say that? And I would say it to his face. There's nothing that I'm going to let come out of my mouth, even an improper Kohanic blessing, that I'm going to later retract. I'm not going to change history. It happened. I'm going to own it. I'm not saying it was right. In fact, I'm saying it was wrong. But I'm going to own that I did that. that's what I've got for us today. These were 13 spectacular teachings of Rabbi Yosei that we brought down once we started a digression based on how many meals are we obligated to eat on Shabbos. And we discussed that because we were talking about how much food can we save from a fire that breaks out on Shabbos. All right, and I think the takeaway is what we just heard about Rabbi Yosei, to own what we've done, to transmit the wisdom, as well as acknowledging the faults and letting people, and particularly our descendants, learn from both our good points and our bad points, and owning them both. Let us look at your questions and comments. Honey Judith Rubin says, what about pets? You're talking about saving pets from a fire. I don't know. They're not the same as human life. Obviously, they're very dear to people. If they can get themselves out, great. But you're asking me, like, can you take a goldfish out? It sounds like under what we're saying, no, but I don't know, to save life, yeah, especially life that's dear to our children. I don't know the answer. I think it's a great question, and I don't know the answer. Sheila Ritter, we are in an RV listening to the rain as you're hearing this class. Beautiful. Bill Eldridge, I usually agree with the sages as far as breakfast goes, but when my classes are out of session, I find it helps to make myself get up to make breakfast to keep my biological clock running smooth. And remember, what they're saying is minimum, right? The minimum that a person should have is 2 meals a day, because that's all a person needs. But hey, that's just the minimum. If we really feel that we need and we can afford to have 3 meals a day, then God bless you, have the 3rd meal. Now, this question of dishes, says Bill Eldridge, raises a serious question. Supposing that for one of the meals you happen to prepare a dish that needs to soak overnight, something like, say, certain casseroles or similar. The answer is the primary cooking has to be done before Shabbos. How do we know that? Because of cholent, right? Cholent. So in many Jewish households, it's tradition to have a cholent on Shabbos. And this was very much an Ashkenazi, European, Northern European tradition. And really, cholent is poor people's food, right? It's a stew that you have some meat and a lot of grains and meat juice, and it just, cooks and makes a beautiful, rich stew that's going to feed everybody on Shabbos day. And you could have it for that 3rd meal as well. Although a lot of people don't like to have a meat dish for 3rd meal, just in case they're going to have pizza on Saturday night. But the cholent, you set it to cook on Friday. You have to do the primary cooking. You brown the meat before it goes in the pot. Now, some cooking is going to happen. As we learned at the beginning of Tractate Shabbos, we talked a lot about cooking, and that you can't cook on Shabbos. But you can keep things warm. You just can't cook them. And if, a little bit of extra stuff happens during, as the cholent is sort of sitting there warm from Friday afternoon into Shabbos lunch, that's okay. But the key is it's not cooking. It's just like its juices are settling into the rest of the stew. But you did the main part of the cooking, the main part of the food preparation, before Shabbat began. And Nina's saying, I'm sure the Sephardic have a version. It's simply a stew that cooks overnight so you can have hot food on Shabbos day. Yes, exactly, as I've been saying. Carolyn Dobson Chavez says, why was the fat of an animal so important regarding the offerings? Simply because the Torah specifies that the fats are like a different category of the animal. And there are times where the fat is removed, the animal is offered on the altar, and then that night after the day has ended, the fats are burned. It was like a separate procedure, and so it had to be accounted for. And we had a little bit of that when we're talking about the Paschal lamb as an analogy that we can skin the whole Paschal lamb and even recover the skin in the same way that we can carry a Torah and its casing and anything that's in the casing from a fire on Shabbos. And it was asked, well, maybe we could make an incision in the animal and just kind of reach in through the hole in the skin after it's been slaughtered, obviously, and pull out what we need, almost like a laparoscopic, surgery. But when you pull those fats out through a hole in the skin, some hair would go with it, and you would have done the process less than the correct way, because those fats that go up on the altar have to go in a pure way. In our journey, we're going to get much more in detail about the different kinds of offerings that go up on the altar, and they all have, they're brought for different reasons, and they're executed with different procedures in different manners. Sometimes the whole animal gets burned, sometimes just a part. Sometimes the priests eat it and the person who brings it doesn't. Sometimes the person who brings it is able to eat some of it and share with friends. There's just a lot of different procedures depending on what offering we're talking about, and we'll get into that later in our journey through the Talmud. Bill says you can never go wrong with heads of garlic and a large fish. Absolutely. Sheila Ritter says, our meals this week will be fresh fruits and veggies, picking them early in the morning because we have minimal money. It won't be lavish, but it will be yummy. Pick them on Friday. You can't pick fruit from your garden on Shabbos. That is a biblically prohibited labor, essentially reaping, harvesting, right? So you can't cut food from the ground or from a tree on Shabbos. So just pick it before Shabbos begins, and it'll still be plenty fresh when you eat it on Shabbos. Carolyn Dobson Chavez, who are Gog and Magog? So that's a prophecy that we have, that at the end of times, there will be the war of Gog and Magog. I thought Gog is a person and Magog is a person. But when I looked this up this time, I see that Gog is the king of Magog, right? So it's not two people, it's a king and his land. But it's essentially going to be some kind of an evil leader who's going to bring a big army to try to make war with Israel in the end of days, and he will lose. Lynn Job says, I thought he was talking about the reading of the Torah. Sometimes Kohanim were replaced through very difficult rules. It just says go up to the platform, but it might not have been for blessing. Perhaps, but both Art Scroll and Koren are indicating that it is for the blessing. And that's why it's such a problematic teaching that Rabbi Yosei is bringing down. And that's why I gave my interpretation that he's doing it not as a brag, but as a teachable moment from his past. And my friends, that is what I've got for us today. It's been great to learn with you. Tomorrow is Shabbos, tomorrow night. So we'll have our class at noon Pacific, God willing, tomorrow Friday. And there's just a gorgeous teaching on page 119 that we'll encounter tomorrow, which would be the basis for what the Kabbalists would do later in Sfat in the 1500s when they created the Lecha Dodi, welcoming the Sabbath bride. That song, that poem, that practice of going out to welcome the Sabbath bride has its root in a teaching we're going to learn with God's help tomorrow on page 119. Sending you all big, big love. Lynn is adding, perhaps Rabbi Yosei had to step in as a Hazan for Kohanim that were untaught. Now that maybe he had a beautiful voice and he was sort of helping them along, because not just because you're a Kohen doesn't mean you have a good voice. And maybe they were unable to give the blessing, and he was there like for a voice for them to follow. Maybe. That's gorgeous. That could be a really beautiful possibility, but it still has the problem that others would think he was a Kohen, right? And so it's still a problematic teaching and something that he may or may not, have thought was a good idea in later years. Okay, my friends, all the best from LA.